Listen, the wound she left you with is the very thing that will teach you how to stand again. It starts when everything familiar suddenly collapses. One moment you think you're safe, and the next you're staring at the ruins of what used to feel like home. Her silence hits harder than any words could. Her absence feels like a theft, not of love but of identity. You look around and realize the version of yourself that existed with her is gone. The air feels heavier, your chest tighter, your mind louder. That's when the truth starts whispering, this is not the end, it's exposure. Life is showing you everything you ignored while you were blinded by comfort. The pain is sharp, but it's precise. It cuts only what's weak. It removes illusions layer by layer until all that's left is what's real. You begin to see how much of your happiness depended on her presence. You notice how easily she became your reason to wake up, your anchor, your validation. And when she vanished, so did your sense of direction. That emptiness feels unbearable at first, but it's sacred. It's where you start rebuilding. Every broken piece becomes proof that you cared, that you were capable of depth. But caring without boundaries was the trap, and betrayal was the only thing strong enough to shatter it. You replay moments in your mind, searching for signs. You wonder how you missed the shift, when affection turned into distance, when warmth became performance. The realization hurts, but it's also cleansing. Because now you know what blind trust costs. It costs your peace, your confidence, your sense of balance. You thought love was safety. You thought being honest and consistent guaranteed loyalty. But reality doesn't play by those rules. Love isn't a promise, it's a test. And betrayal is the final question that forces you to answer truthfully. Who are you without her? You start noticing the silence differently. It's no longer an enemy. It becomes space. Space to think, to breathe, to rediscover yourself. You start to detach from the fantasy of who she was and face who she really became. It's hard because part of you still misses the person you imagined. But that's the illusion breaking, not her loss, your awakening. You realize she didn't just walk away from you. She walked away from the version of herself that your love created. And that's something you can't fix. The nights feel long. The memories feel endless. But every ache is molding you quietly. You're learning to stand on ground that once felt like quicksand. You're learning to exist without chasing her shadow. The collapse wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You needed to lose what was false to discover what's true. That's the cruel beauty of betrayal. It strips, but it also shapes. You come out raw, exposed, but real. You start to see the power in your scars. They don't make you weaker. They make you honest. And honesty is the first step to becoming unbreakable. After the destruction, what remains is raw truth. There's no more pretending, no more hiding behind hope. The smoke clears, and what you see is everything you didn't want to admit. You realize how much of what you called love was comfort. You were addicted to the idea of being understood, not the reality of being challenged. Now, standing among the ashes, you can finally see clearly. The lies, the manipulation, the excuses, they all look different when the emotion fades. You start seeing patterns, not promises. You see the truth not through her words, but through her absence. It's quiet now, but that silence tells the whole story. Every unanswered message, every half-hearted apology, every delayed response was her way of preparing to leave. You didn't want to believe it, so you covered the cracks with effort. But truth doesn't care about your effort. It reveals itself when it's time. And when it does, it doesn't whisper, it screams. You realize you were loving her potential, not her reality. You were attached to what you imagined she could become, not who she really was standing in front of you. The truth is never gentle. It doesn't comfort you. It confronts you. It exposes how much of your love was desperation disguised as devotion. It forces you to accept that your loyalty was never the problem. It was misplaced. You gave everything to someone who never asked for accountability. You handed over your peace thinking it would buy connection. But peace isn't a currency. It's a boundary. And once you give it away, you start losing yourself piece by piece. You begin to notice how heavy the relationship really was. The constant reassurance, the emotional guessing, the overthinking. All of it was you trying to hold something together that was already slipping. She wasn't confused. She was just comfortable knowing you'd never stop trying. The truth burns because it shows you how easily people can take your consistency for granted. But that pain also frees you. Because once you see clearly, you can never unsee it. You stop asking why, and start asking what now. You start moving differently. You speak less. You observe more. The clarity that once felt like pain now feels like protection. You understand that knowing the truth doesn't hurt, resisting it does. Once you accept what happened, the power shifts. You no longer need closure from her. You give it to yourself. You start setting limits where you once begged for effort. You start choosing silence over explanations. That's what truth does. It liberates you from fantasy. It takes away comfort but gives you awareness. It removes illusions but gives you direction. You're no longer a man lost in emotions. You're a man guided by facts. Betrayal was just the teacher. The lesson was self-awareness. You see now that her exit was the doorway to your evolution. She left, but clarity stayed. And that clarity is what will keep you from ever falling for another illusion again. Betrayal wasn't a one-way street. It reflected back everything you allowed to be taught about you. When she crossed the line, it revealed lessons you never enrolled in. Tolerance of disrespect, hope disguised as patience, and excuses dressed like loyalty. This was not merely her failing. It was the echo of your choices. You realized that what she mirrored wasn't just her nature but the education you wrote for her through your behavior. Ownership is a hard lesson. It means naming the ways you enabled the thing that hurt you. It means admitting you handed over authority over your emotions. You let inconsistency slide because you feared losing love. You tolerated small betrayals because hope whispered that things would change. Tolerance built a template. People rarely step into roles you don't invite them to. Your availability taught her limits. This is not blame shifting. It's accountability becoming sharp and practical. You stop cataloging her faults and start auditing your responses. You ask which habits kept the rot hidden. You examine where silence became consent. You trace the moments you conferred power to someone who didn't deserve it. That inventory is brutal and honest. It uncovers patterns you can correct. Standards are simple but relentless. They are declarations. When you raise the bar, you change the ecosystem around you. You make clear what behavior will find a home in your life and what will be escorted out. Standards protect your time, your peace, and your dignity. They turn your values into practice. Availability is rethinkable. Being present isn't the same as being owned. You can care without surrendering your center. You can show up without becoming predictable. There is posture in restraint. When you reserve your energy, you teach others to earn it. Scarcity isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It marks the boundary between attentive and overgiving. Discipline replaces drama. Instead of reacting, you implement rules. No more emotional giveaways. No more random forgiveness that signals permissiveness. Discipline means measured responses, consistent enforcement, and consequences that match your words. People adapt to consequences faster than speeches. When your actions mirror your declarations, behavior shifts. This shift doesn't make you cold. It makes you consistent. You remain capable of intimacy but no longer at the cost of your core. Empathy survives because it's guided by wisdom. You feel, but feeling is directed by principles, not impulses. That is a different strength, one that earns respect rather than dependency. You stop waiting for explanations. You stop hoping for apologies that may never come. Instead, you build systems that prevent repeat harm. You cultivate projects and routines that anchor you. You reduce others' emotional leverage. You become the authority of your inner world. In the end, the betrayal taught a vital skill: how to be the author of your conduct. You rewrite the terms of engagement. You stop outsourcing your boundaries. You become deliberate. Ownership turns pain into strategy. And that strategy becomes the blueprint for a life where loyalty is earned and where you no longer pay for it with your peace. Pain arrives not to punish but to educate. It isn't accidental. It's curriculum disguised as calamity. The crack in your life wasn't a random failure, it was initiation. It forced you into lessons the easy life could never teach. When the hurt comes, you stop pretending innocence. You confront limits you never imagined existed. You learn the language of loss. That language is blunt. It doesn't pander or explain. It shows you where you were soft and where you let your borders dissolve. It interrogates your worth and leaves you with choices: fold or forge. Forging begins with discomfort. You lean into days that used to make you flinch. You let the ache pulse through your muscles instead of anesthetizing it with distraction. You test your capacity for solitude and discover it contains answers you avoided in crowds. First rules: endure, reflect, adapt. The initiation humbles. It strips titles and status, leaving the man under the armor. You meet the version of yourself that outsourced courage to approval. There's shame. There's clarity. The shame narrows into focus. The focus becomes actionable. You stop performing and start repairing. Training is practical. You build habits that require repetition and resistance. You lift when you would rather curl into numbness. You work when working feels pointless. These rituals shorten the distance between intention and reality. Pain becomes the forge where discipline is hammered into habit. Boundaries are hammered next. They aren't theoretical declarations, they are hardened routines. You learn to say no without theatrics, to walk away without drama, to remove yourself from toxicity without explanation. Each boundary is an artifact of growth. Each refusal sculpts the man you're becoming. Emotion becomes regulated. You no longer let every sensation steer you. You cultivate filters, thought checks, delays before reaction, accountability structures. Feeling remains but impulse retires. You reserve energy for things that multiply value and shed what eats it. That economy is learned through loss. Facing the mirror is essential. The initiation forces introspection without sugarcoating. You catalog behaviors, trace causes, and map a plan to fix them. It's rigorous work. That work reshapes impulse into strategy and chaos into design. You acquire a new taste for silence. Not the bitter silence of abandonment, but a quiet that breeds resolution. In that silence your priorities clarify. You hear ambitions you'd muffled. The silence becomes a training ground for intention. Pain also teaches timing. You learn when to act and when to wait. You learn to cultivate presence without clinging. That timing is a tactical edge. You move with deliberation instead of reaction. This initiation does not end with survival. It ends with refinement. You emerge hardened where weakness once lived and softened where hardness had hardened the heart. You keep tenderness, but it's tempered by truth. The man who finishes initiation holds peace like armor and purpose like a map. So when suffering arrives, accept the syllabus. Do the work. Let the process institute habits, not grudges. Let the pain educate you into craft. The initiation is apprenticeship. Stand firm. Finish it and you will be remade. Silence becomes your signal. You stop filling empty spaces with explanations and frantic proof. You stop begging for reasons and conserve your energy. Withdrawal isn't weakness, it's recalibration. When you remove yourself from the chase, truth moves on its own. Absence becomes an experiment in character. It separates the curious from the committed. You trade noisy validation for quiet sovereignty. Conversations shrink to necessary transactions. You no longer advertise your value, you guard it. That restraint clarifies intent. If someone returns, they return to earn it. If they don't, you accept their absence as answer. Silence does not punish, it educates. It shows others how you operate and teaches you to stand without applause. Silence sharpens perception. Without the blur of explanations, motives look clearer. You spot the difference between reparations and rehearsed remorse. You feel attention versus performance. It becomes easier to see which actions are sustainable and which are theatrics. That clarity keeps you from repeating harmful cycles. Silence is not emptiness. It is infrastructure. It builds a buffer between reaction and response. You create a pause where instinct once ruled. That pause cultivates options instead of panic. You learn to respond from strategy rather than from hurt. Your emotional economy improves because you spend less on people who refuse to invest. Silence increases bargaining power. When calm, your decisions carry weight. People are less likely to take advantage of composure. They must move with intention instead of convenience. Your unwillingness to engage in drama forces clearer terms. You do not negotiate from deficit. You negotiate from presence. Silence preserves dignity. You refuse to lower your tone to match chaos. You stop explaining yourself to those who profit from confusion. That refusal rewires expectations. Others begin to respect boundaries because you embody them. Respect arrives not from loud declarations but from quiet enforcement. Silence protects momentum. Less noise means more focus. You redirect attention into creation instead of consumption. Hours once spent chasing texts become hours building skill, body, and plan. That redirection compounds. Small choices add up to visible change, and change rewrites your life faster than any apology. Silence breeds mystery. You become less readable, and that unpredictability restores balance. People must work to understand you rather than assume you exist to accommodate them. That dynamic shifts power naturally. Your availability becomes earned, not given. Silence demands boundaries be tested by action, not words. If someone values you, absence provokes movement that matches their words. If they remain absent, intentions reveal themselves. You conserve yourself for people who match presence with consistency. In silence you practice self-authority. You decide when to speak and whom to include. You shape conversation rather than surrender to it. That sovereignty is peaceful and potent. It teaches you to choose company that adds value and to decline what drains. Silence is your tool, your protection, and your classroom. Use it deliberately, and it will teach you how to stand unmoved and dignified in a world that profits from your noise. Let absence be the mirror. Let your life be the answer. Boundaries are the architecture of the new you. They are not dramatic declarations. They are small, consistent practices that protect time, dignity, and focus. You stop letting emotions decide the terms. You decide the terms. Boundaries are the difference between being used and being chosen. Start by mapping non-negotiables. Identify behaviors you will not accept. Then enforce them like you enforce workouts. Consistency is more powerful than explanation. When someone crosses a line, consequences follow immediately. Not to punish but to teach. People adapt to clarity faster than to lectures. Say no without guilt. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe extended negotiations. Your energy has limits and you guard them. Saying no builds momentum for everything you truly want. It creates space for priorities that matter. The man who can refuse is the man who can focus. Turn standards into routines. Don't just talk about limits, live them. Remove easy exits and add friction to access. If someone treats you as optional, make them apply for a place in your life. Let absence test their intent. If they want in, their actions will prove it. If not, you stay intact. Boundaries include daily practices. Sleep, training, work, reading. These are not secondary, they are sacred. When your schedule is non-negotiable, people learn not to interrupt your progress. Habits become your defense. Discipline is the guardrail that prevents regression. Expect resistance. People will complain when you stop being convenient. That's a test. Complaints are often attempts to reclaim old dynamics. Hold firm. Resistance reveals who benefits from your previous generosity. Partners who respect you will adjust. Those who don't will expose themselves quickly. Enforce consequences calmly. No theatrics. Walk away when promises become patterns of failure. Withdraw resources, time, attention, emotional labor, from those who squander them. Actions teach faster than speeches. Your silence and removal are clearer than any argument. Boundaries sharpen identity. They help you choose people who align with your trajectory. You stop confusing affection with commitment. Commitment is proven through repeated behavior over time. If someone cannot match that, they don't belong in your inner circle. Teach through modeling. Show the behavior you expect. When you keep agreements and honor your word, others are forced to meet the standard or step aside. Leadership in relationships looks like reliability, not dominance. People follow what you manifest more than what you demand. Boundaries create safety for vulnerability. Ironically, when you hold the line, you can be more open. You can love without losing yourself. The safety of clear terms allows intimacy that's mature and sustainable. Vulnerability without boundaries is reckless. Vulnerability with boundaries is brave. Reassess regularly. Boundaries are not fixed, they evolve as you grow. Adjust them when needed but never compromise core dignity. Your measures protect a life under construction. Keep refining until the life you build requires no apology. In short, Boundaries are practice, not punishment. They are the daily measures that teach respect, conserve energy, and foster growth. Implement them steadily, enforce them calmly, and watch how your world rearranges to fit the man you are becoming. Composure becomes your currency. When storms hit, you stand steadier. Emotions still exist, but they no longer hijack your decisions. You feel deeply and then you choose. That pause between impulse and action becomes your advantage. It stops chaos from owning you. You build routines that tame reaction. Cold showers, disciplined sleep, consistent training. Small, predictable rituals anchor an unpredictable day. They temper spikes in anger and soften spirals of doubt. Over time, discipline reshapes nervousness into presence. You practice naming emotions without surrendering to them. Call the feeling what it is: anger, grief, frustration, and set it aside like an unfinished task. Processing is active, not passive. Journal the anger, move the rest through controlled channels so your mind can operate clearly. Breath becomes tactical. Slow inhales, measured exhales. That simple rhythm resets the system faster than any argument. When the heart rushes, breathing centers you. When thoughts race, breath makes room for strategy. Master the body and the mind follows. You learn to detach from immediate validation. Likes, messages, reactions, they become background noise. Their absence does not equate to failure. You no longer base worth on external echoes. Self-regard is internal, constant, and independent of approval. Conversation changes. You speak with weight, not volume. Questions replace accusations. You ask for clarity instead of demanding explanations. That style draws truth or reveals absence. People either comply or expose themselves. You cultivate timed responses. Delay is power. Waiting before replying forces the situation to settle and reveals intent. Hasty reactions supply drama. Deliberate replies demand responsibility. Strategic timing frustrates manipulators and conserves energy. You rehearse detachment in low-stakes moments. Practice saying no to small demands, refuse to be pulled into gossip, leave trivial fights unstarted. Those micro-skills transfer to larger battles. By the time weightier conflict arrives, you're calibrated to act from principle instead of pain. You turn vulnerability into an asset, not a liability. Share selectively with reciprocity. Vulnerability without reciprocity is surrender. When you open, ensure the space is safe. If it's not, you close it. You observe patterns before investing trust. People reveal themselves through repetition. Look for rhythm, not rhetoric. Consistency beats intensity. Someone consistent across mundane situations will likely hold in crisis. You practice emotional bookkeeping. Track empathy and time, and balance them with returns of respect and effort. When the ledger goes red, adjust contributions. This habit prevents emotional bankruptcy. You build ceremonial recovery. After conflict, follow a set that restores composure. Cold water, a brief walk, a note to yourself, then action. Rituals anchor recovery and prevent rumination from snowballing. You train in presence. In rooms full of noise, you remain centered. Presence is visible, steady gaze, measured tone, calm posture. People lean into that energy naturally. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It is strategic stewardship. Feelings inform but do not command. You honor what arises and then choose what serves your trajectory. This discipline turns pain into precision and makes you unshakable. Live by that code and watch your life rearrange around dependable, earned respect daily. Pain fuels momentum when you refuse to waste it. The sorrow that once froze you becomes a current that pushes you forward. Instead of looping on what broke, you convert emotion into structured output. Grief becomes exercise, focus, and work. It becomes a lever. You redirect longing into growth. What you once spent on longing now buys skill and resilience. You enroll in routines that demand presence. You train body and mind until the old ache no longer dictates your schedule. Progress becomes louder than pity. Ambition replaces waiting. You make plans with timelines, not hopes. Small victories stack fast when you commit to consistent action. Each completed task rewrites your story. Momentum compounds. Results drown out rumors and regrets. You monetize attention, yours. Time is finite and you spend it on high-return activities. You build assets, physical strength, marketable skill, relationships that reciprocate. Those assets create options. Options restore dignity. You discipline focus. Block distractions and create sacred work windows. Protect your calendar like a fortress. When vision meets unbroken work, change accelerates. That acceleration is the antidote to nostalgia. You weaponize routine. Mornings become performance. Cold water, movement, reading, planning. These rituals reroute anxiety into competence. The daily grind is no longer punishment. It's the engine of a new identity. You channel pain into craft. Instead of narrating heartbreak, you build something that outlasts it. A business, a body, an art. Choose what matches your purpose. Create relentlessly. Creation confirms your evolution. You curate influence. Surround yourself with people who demand improvement and reward grit. Communities shape behavior. Choose circles that pull you upward. Peer pressure works both ways, use it deliberately. You measure progress in outputs, not feelings. Reports, metrics, reps. These are proof. Emotions fluctuate, output does not lie. When you focus on measurable growth, validation switches from fickle applause to consistent proof. You adopt a beginner's mindset. Pain can make you wise or brittle. Choose curiosity. Learn skills fast. Fail publicly and iterate privately. Growth is messy, persistence polishes it. You convert scarcity into investment. Where loss once tightened your chest, you now see opportunities where others see empty shelves. Scarcity sharpens priorities. Invest time and resources where compounding returns exist. You commit to longer arcs. Immediate comfort is tempting, but legacy requires patience. You trade short thrills for durable gains. That discipline separates men who recover from men who repeat. You celebrate small wins. Failures are lessons. Recognition fuels continuity. Embarrassment narrows focus. Use praise to fuel further work and let setbacks inform but not define you. You externalize accountability. Hire coaches, partners, mentors, people who will call you out and push standards. Accountability accelerates growth and removes excuses. You make your revenge invisible. A life built on consistency, dignity, and daily stakes. You don't flaunt comeback, you live it. The quiet accumulation of effort is the loudest answer. Finally, you keep the engine running long after the pain has faded. Transformation is not a sprint, it's a life. Let the pain be the spark. Tend the flame with discipline. Watch a new version of you become inevitable. When the fire finally cools, you stand in a different temperature. The man who walks away from ruin carries a new weight. A weight that is not burden but proof. That weight is earned by choices, not excuses. You wear it without announcing it. The end of that chapter doesn't mean the story is smaller. It means the plot tightened around purpose. You walk cleaner lines. You speak less but what you say lands. Presence replaces plea. You stop proving value, you embody it. Your pace changes. You move slower in crowds and faster toward goals. Speed becomes selective. You no longer rush to fix feelings or manufacture connections. You accelerate only what deserves the engine of your attention. Your criteria are simple. Consistency, accountability, reciprocity, these become entry requirements. If someone cannot meet them, they do not enter your life. No explanations, no dramatic exits. People sort themselves by behavior. You cultivate a quiet center. Noise tries to pull you into old stories, but you remain planted. That center is where decisions are made and where calm originates. Others notice the difference. They respect the man who refuses to be moved by petty storms. You take custody of your future. The past is a file you consult, not a residence. You extract lessons and file them away. You do not live in the room where betrayal happened. You use its architecture as a workshop. Love is redesigned. It is no longer supply without terms. Now it is mutual commitment shown by repeated acts. Affection is granted when standards are met, not parceled to numb pain. That discipline protects tenderness. Forgiving is redefined. Mercy is private and not permission. Forgiveness frees you, not signals a return. If someone rebuilds trust, you accept it on clear terms. If not, you close the door without rancor. You carry scars with intention. They are navigation marks, not trophies. Each line tells where you learn to stop and choose. They map a route away from dependency towards sovereignty. You lead by calendar and conviction rather than whims and texts. Your schedule is sacred, your projects territorial. That structure supports creative output and sustained strength. It produces a life that doesn't need constant repair. You do not become unfeeling. You become selective. Compassion remains but is measured. You give where returns exist in honor. Your generosity flows to those who respect its value. Your voice shifts. It is quieter and clearer. It cuts through noise because it is necessary. People listen because your words are anchored in a life that matches them. Authority grows without coercion. You grow tolerant of loss and intolerant of disrespect. Loss happens. Disrespect is optional and you refuse it now. The paradox is simple. What tried to break you made you sovereign. The crown is not ornament. It's consequence of discipline, pain, and deliberate work. You own your story not as victim but as architect. Walk forward like you mean it. Keep building quietly, day by day, until your presence renders explanations unnecessary and your future commands respect wherever you go. Now, subscribe for more powerful chapters on masculine growth, emotional mastery, and silent strength, because your comeback deserves to be heard.